Another win for the Hornets. What are they doing? They're being competitive down the stretch. Miles Bridges, another excellent performance, and Mark Williams played really well against the Heat also. We'll get to all of it today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. We do have a newsletter, just to let everybody know. We have a new Locked On Hornets daily newsletter, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage, delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free right now, LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Hornets newsletter. There's the man writing it, Doug Branson. He's also writing for EveryHornetsBoxScore.com, and he's also talking on another platform, Locked On NBA, with Matt Moore and Hayes. I'm Walker Mail. I'm just talking. I don't do any writing. I'm Walker Mail on WFNZ of Wes and Walker Sports Radio, 92.7 WFNZ. The Hornets, they get another win, Doug. What are they doing? Who is this Hornets team? What got into these guys? 105-102, they get a win over Miami. Miles Bridges, another outstanding performance for him. 35 points for Miles. After a 40-point performance against Cleveland a couple of nights ago, career high 46. This was after 26 points, I believe, against the Nets, but really just an all-around fantastic game. So he is on an incredible hot streak. Might be his best stretch of basketball that he's ever played throughout his NBA career. You saw him 5 assists, only a couple of turnovers, 5 rebounds. The three-point shooting for Miles at the end of this game, the clutch shot making after getting off to, I believe, a 1-for-6 start from distance, and then started to pour it in from deep. 5 of 11 from the three-point line is where he would end up. And again, a lot of those threes were made late after what was a bad start. But Miles has been clutch for this team. He set the tone. It feels like the mood is a little contagious. Like, it feels like now guys are starting to rally behind Miles, and Miles is being the on-court leader. Another incredible game for the oldest player on the team. He's playing like the vet.
He was simply the only offense that the Hornets had in the first half of this game. No one else was able to hit a shot with any kind of consistency or even run functional offense. There was just a lot of mishaps going on when the ball wasn't in Miles Bridges in his hands. And I thought he did miss some threes early, and then he put his head down and decided, all right, I'm going to get to the rim. I'm going to find some rhythm at the rim, and he did that, and then it paid dividends for him in the fourth quarter when he got opportunities to hit open shots, and he did. He buried them. I thought he was fantastic on defense as well. In the first half, they put him on Bam Adebayo, and look, Miami, I think, forced some good opportunities for Bam and for Wiggins. It was a tough guard, but I thought he did a good job. And then late, he had a big defensive play late against Wiggins that stopped a bucket, and then he was good on Hawkes as well. I mean, it seemed like at some point in the game, he guarded every single Miami Heat player because he's a guy that you can trust on those switches and in transition. And so, yeah, he was... I mean, what can you say at this point? Yeah, he's playing some of the best basketball of his career. He's a leader for this team. He's the most dependable thing they have on offense in particular.
Apologies to Taj Gibson, by the way. I said Miles Bridges was the oldest on the team. He's the longest tenured with the Hornets. Taj Gibson.
I know what you mean.
We appreciate you, sir, Taj Gibson, the oldest player in the NBA probably outside of LeBron James. Yeah, Miles is playing like the leader that's been here for a while, and we can have the conversation about what's going to happen with him in the future. But at this point, what he's doing is pretty ridiculous, especially with a lot of the guys, Doug, that we've talked about to defend LaMelo and his lack of efficiency and his bad performances, Miles Bridges is playing better with those guys on the floor. Now, you do have LaMelo in this game against Miami. You have Mark Williams. You have 80% of your original starting lineup. The only guy you're missing now is Brandon Miller, and Daquan Jeffries was in the starting lineup last night. They've experimented with Damian Baugh getting in the starting lineup. You go to the bench. You're talking about Malachi Flynn, Wendell Moore, a couple of two-way guys that signed in mid-February. So you're still going to get a lot of minutes from them, but Miles is still rallying everyone. And this has been something that's been a constant theme all year long, whether it be Charles Lee, whatever assistant coach. We can actually go back more than a year. We can go to Steve Clifford and James Borrego, but even specifically Steve Clifford, discussing how much Miles means to the team. The players are saying the same thing. Mark Williams, after the game, got the post-game interview with Shannon Spake, and Mark Williams was crediting MB with doing it all, and he said, MB, that's their guy. Same thing with some of the younger players. You mentioned Damian Baugh yesterday, how it was Miles and Josh Okogie that calmed him down and got him ready to go at the same time as a first-time starter over the weekend. This group is looking to Miles to do it all for them in moments where they need a win. And even if they lose to a 60 projected win team like Cleveland, it's only by 1 point. And if they win against Brooklyn and Miami, it's been Miles that has been the head of the snake in every single regard. He is the best player on the team right now. He is the best player on the team. It's not particularly close, and it hasn't been post All-Star break.
Doing it from the free throw line as well. You know, we mentioned the 3-point shots, but those 2 free throws that he hit at the end of the game to keep the lead at 3, super important. And his free throw rate is up to 36%. On the season, it's 23.5%, but 36% in the last 5 games. So he's again, I think he's just putting his head down, getting to the rim, and forcing teams to guard him there, and they're having to foul him. And so, yeah, man, it's excellent. Yeah, he's drawing in the last 5 games. He's drawing 5.6 fouls per game. That's up on the season from 2.9. He looks like a completely different player than we saw at the beginning of the season. And if you are a fan of the idea of the Hornets having a core 4, the idea that they really wanted to explore before Brandon Miller got injured, and before then Miles got injured, and then LaMelo got injured, and then Mark Williams got injured.
And then he got traded, and then Mark Williams got traded, and then we thought there wasn't even a possibility of that core 4 anymore.
Right. But if you like that idea, this is the game for you, because you had the major 3 contributors were Miles Bridges, Mark Williams, LaMelo Ball. They got little contributions because this was a team effort, particularly on the defensive end of the floor, because you hold Miami to 102. I thought it's like they took Miami's culture and beat them to death with it. The hustle, the heart, the defense, the late game execution, all the stuff that Miami typically beats the Hornets with historically with Jimmy Butler. They don't have Jimmy Butler anymore. But those are the kinds of things that the Heat typically beat the Hornets with. The Hornets turn the tables and they beat the Heat. And I don't care about whatever tanking situation, tankathon, whatever. You always beat the Heat. No matter what, no matter the situation, you always beat the Heat. It's the closest thing the Hornets have to a rivalry. Don't come at me with some pig trophy with the games against Atlanta. That's a fake rivalry. The only thing close, and I don't even think it's a real rivalry, but the only thing close that the Hornets have, the last team that beat them in an actual playoff series, the Miami Heat. If you were in attendance at the Spectrum Center in 2016, then you are going to enjoy beating the Heat at all times. ABTH, always beat the Heat.
Let's move off of that one. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
All of those qualities that the Hornets played with the grit, the grind. Sorry, Memphis, we stalled that for a little bit. The hustle, the Heat culture stuff. Not only was it Miles Bridges, there were a lot of players that exhibited that last night, including Mark Williams. We talk about Mark Williams coming up next, LOH.
I'm still bitter!
This episode is brought to you by Skims. Did you know that Skims now makes underwear for men, bringing the same attention to quality and comfort they're known for? It's true, Doug. It's true. Well, now you do. The men's line offers something for everyone, from boxer briefs to classic briefs, all designed with the perfect balance of comfort and style. Finding underwear that fits well, stays in one place, and moves with you throughout the day can be a challenge. Skims solves that with lightweight, high-quality materials that provide all-day comfort, whether working out, traveling, or just going about daily life. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com and Skims stores. Let them know we sent you. After placing an order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu. And if you're looking for the perfect gift for Valentine's Day or for yourself, Skims just launched their best Valentine's shop ever. A little after Valentine's Day, but you can still get Skims as a gift for other people. It doesn't have to be just that specific holiday. There's plenty of reasons to shop Skims. Available in sizes for women, men, kids, and even pets. That's interesting. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Miles Bridges deserves all the praise with what he's been doing out there on the court. Mark Williams, not so much on a consistent basis. We've talked a lot about Mark Williams this year. It's been a wild season for him. Doug, I thought that he had been putting together a consistent string of games for the most part, but it hasn't been every single contest. We talked about the game against Minnesota, where it wasn't very good. But the 3 games prior to that, I think we didn't really have all that many complaints, right? He was actually playing pretty well, and he's putting together some nice box scores. I thought this was the best game that we had seen from Mark in a long time. Not only was the box score kind to him, Doug, I tweeted this out, and I said what has been a consistent trend for him, it's been Mark Williams plays well after a couple of days rest. When he rests a couple of games, Mark comes out there and he balls. Well, he had a bad game against Minnesota. He didn't play against Cleveland. He didn't play against Brooklyn. And here against Miami, he goes 9 of 13. He scores 24 points. He grabs 10 rebounds. He goes 6 of 7 from the free throw line. But even just throw out the box score. I think this is something I haven't heard your opinion on this game yet, but I think this is the type of game that you and all of us would want. Mark was running the floor. Mark was really active. There were still like some, I don't know about lapses, just some mistakes from him because it wasn't a perfect game. I don't know how many people have a perfect game, but this was the most active I've seen Mark in a game in quite some time. What were your thoughts on Mark Williams?
Everything that you just said there was true. Outstanding game, like by the numbers and also by the eye test. 24, 10, 2 on 69% shooting. Now, he started the game 1 of 4 from the field, but he was nearly perfect in the second half, 7 of 8 from the field. So all of that's true.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he always has great games against the Heat. Like, go back to the past couple of seasons. When he plays the Heat, he has great games. Why? Because he's matching up with Bam Adebayo, who doesn't really want anything to do with like post-up action, paint action. He wants to shoot threes and kind of hang around the mid-post. And that's where Mark Williams can hang. And Bam, I don't think a very aggressive rebounder either. So he's not going to get punished there. And then, for at least in the first half, because the big adjustment defensively was they had Miles on Bam in the first half, and they had Mark on Ware. And then in the second half, because Wiggins was killing DeQuan Jeffries, they moved Miles onto Wiggins. And that was the big second half defensive adjustment. Shout out Charles Lee for put the microscope on the game, and that was one of the difference makers as well. But Mark also had to go up against Khalil Ware, who is like, I joked in the Every Hornets box score write-up that it's kind of the Spider-Man meme, that like Khalil Ware and Mark Williams pointing at each other. Like, hey, we're a little bit alike, except Ware is not afraid to shoot the three-point shot occasionally. But so this was a good matchup for Mark Williams, and it's off of 5 days rest. And so I'll just say what Miles Bridges said after the game, which is like, he said, I tell Mark, we need that from you every night. Why is Mark getting this time off? Is it injury related? Is it, hey, dude, you're not having a great game, sit down for a little while? Like, what's that all about? I think that would be a fair question to ask Charles Lee. Is this all about injury? Like, what is this rest time for Mark Williams really about? When he plays like this, it's great for the Charlotte Hornets. It's just you cannot count on that. I've got to see consistency from him before I'm ready to say, oh, well, the Hornets should absolutely hold on to him. No question. They should not put him in trade discussions at all. Like it was a great game, but I got to see him do it in a situation where I don't expect it from him.
Which is why no one talked about this being a game that is the evidence as to why you should keep Mark long term. It's all true that he had a couple games rest and that this was the most active that I had seen him. Forget about the matchup for even just a moment. The guy we had been frustrated with his lack of activity, with his lack of want to, and that was not shown in this game. This was somebody that was beating Kel'el Ware down the floor. This was somebody that would see a lane and LaMelo would have the ball in his hands and LaMelo might feed him or he might not. There was one time where Mark wasn't fed and I thought he should have by LaMelo, but he filled the lane and there was a fast break opportunity that he provided. There was some offense that he provided. There were some pick and roll opportunities where LaMelo did have some really nice touch passes to Mark that he was able to hold on to and either finish or he got fouled. The Bam Adebayo not being a physical rebounder thing, he has averaged 10 rebounds for his career. He's a good rebounder. He's short, so you got to figure out the big matchups. It's all about the big bodies. I do think Bam is down for all of the dirty work down low. Like we have seen him be an aggressive rebounder in the postseason. He's down for it. We just don't see Mark Williams do it against the bigger bodies. I think what happens is, even if it is against the Heat, who he has had good games before against, even if it's against Bam, who is a shorter center, and Kel'el Ware is not the beefiest of centers by any means, we would be killing him if he didn't do this. We'd be killing him today. So I do want to take into effect and into account everything that we're talking about. Couple days rest. It's been a wild season for Mark. He put together a nice string of games before Minnesota, then played pretty terribly, bounced back after a couple games rest, balled out. But even more so, it's the activity. I think he looked way more spry in this game than I had seen him after other games that he's played before, right? Like, or other games that he's missed even too. This was a nice sign, and I do think for the most part, we're starting to see him put together some of the stuff that we want to see from him on a more consistent basis, even if it clearly doesn't mean, okay, now I'm good, I'm not trading Mark anymore, he's a franchise center. Nobody thinks that, but we needed to see him have a good game against Miami, and he delivered on it, which I'm thrilled about, given the circumstances.
Yeah, now do it for 2 consecutive games, please.
And in the playoffs.
Please,
do it in the
please.
playoffs. Do it in the playoffs.
Well, we're not even close to that. That's what I'm saying. We're not even in that. We're not even near that. That's another conversation that hopefully we'll eventually get to.
We'll have
it's just do it for 2 consecutive games. And that's not me talking. That's not. If you think I'm a Mark hater, that's not me talking. That's Miles Bridges.
Don't do that. This is what you do. This is what you do, Doug. You've done this with Charles Lee multiple times. You do it with Miles Bridges now, where you try to throw your opinion on what the other guys are saying, which it's okay for you to say that and not even Charles, because nobody's denying what you're saying, right? Miles Bridges, everybody hears it, and it's totally true. We do need to see it consistently. We do need to see it consistently from Mark Williams, and I guess it's just at least he has this right now, because I wasn't sure that he had it anymore, right? I wasn't sure that he was going to show that kind of activity. We haven't seen that kind in a long time. So I'm just glad he showed it against Miami. Don't hide behind Miles and Charles Lee.
There's no hiding. I'm just repeating what the man said. There's no even like twisting or trying to read between the lines. I'm just telling you what the man said.
He did say it. Miles Bridges did say, this is the Mark. This is why I'm on him. I know his potential. He also said, listen to Miles too. He says, when he's playing like that, there's not a center that can hang with him in the league. Do you believe him on that comment, or was that where he's going a little crazy?
That's where he's going a little crazy because I haven't seen the evidence. I just need to see the evidence. I need to see him go up against. Here's what I want to see. And I promise you, if this happens, I will come on the show and say, yes, Mark, yes, way to go. Is if he goes into a matchup where you and I both look at the matchup and go, oh boy, I don't know how Mark's going to handle this. And in the first half, Charles Lee allows him to like go up against that matchup and doesn't try to hide him. Okay. And then Mark succeeds in that area. That's when I'll say, okay, great.
In terms of keeping him for the future, absolutely. Right. This is not an indication that you need to hold on to him for dear life because he had a good game against Miami. But I'm glad that he had a good game against Miami because we'd be going the opposite way. If Mark didn't, then we'd be like, well, great, Mark is terrible, and we'd be talking about just how terrible he was. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
Tidjane Salaün, he got optioned down to Greensboro, but he was having a nice little stretch, shot making. What did we make of what Tidjane was doing? We'll give you some other rapid fire observations in this game against Miami coming up next, last segment. This episode is brought to you by Wayfair. Your home should reflect your style. And with Wayfair, it's easier than ever to make that happen. Whether you're looking for a simple refresh or tackling a big home project, Wayfair has everything you need in one place. Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find the perfect piece, no matter your space or budget. From cozy furniture and stylish decor to kitchen essentials and outdoor must-haves, Wayfair has it all and at prices that fit your budget. Finding the perfect piece, you could be looking for a new rug to tie your living room together. Wayfair has so many stylish options at great prices. Plus, they give you easy shopping access and easy delivery. The site made it simple to compare styles, and you can have your order arrive fast with free delivery. Head over to wayfair.com. Find something that's just your style today. That's Wayfair, wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. More Locked On Hornets ahead. You want to go through rapid fire observations in this game real quickly, Doug, before we go to Tidjane Salaün? What about LaMelo? LaMelo maturing. What did you think about his game after another really rough shooting night for him?
Yeah, I thought this was a complicated game for LaMelo Ball. Like, if you miss this game and you check the box score, you're going to see, he shot 24% from the field on 21 attempts, went 2 of 12 from 3. He actually missed his first 8 3-point shots. I think after he missed his first 2, Eric Collins was like, I've got a real nice stat the next time LaMelo hits a 3-point shot.
Yeah,
totally jinxed LaMelo. The neat stat was that when he finally did hit his 9th attempt at the 3-point shot, he moved into 5th place all time in franchise made threes. So that was neat, but he hasn't been hitting a lot of them, or at least efficiently. So 2 of 12 from 3. And his stretch to begin the third quarter, I thought, was some of the ugliest offense I've seen him play. Just totally out of sorts, not making great decisions, not hitting shots, getting blocked at the rim consistently.
Yeah.
It was like bad. On the other hand, he had 10 assists in this game, and he limited his turnovers. I think he had 3 in the first half, 1 in the second. So when the game did get tight, he limited his turnovers. Also, the 2 threes that he did hit, one was to tie the game, and then one was in the fourth quarter to bring the deficit down to 3. They were like huge, momentum-swinging 3-point shots. But despite all of the shots that he missed, I thought at the end of the game, he made the critical decision, which is he had an ISO opportunity and decided to go handoff with Miles Bridges for that go-ahead 3-point shot. He didn't needlessly foul. He was available to make that play. That's the most important thing. Like, he kept taking himself out of games with silly fouls because he was getting frustrated, and he was taking himself out of defensive plays because he was arguing with referees. He took some contact from Miami that should have been called. But instead of arguing with the officials, the thing that you've been pointing out, Walker, arguing with the officials and not being able to be available for transition defense, he was available. He was breaking up plays in transition with his defense because he's quick, because he sees things. He can do this if he focuses, if he gets rid of the frustration and the expectations and just starts to play basketball on both ends. He can be an impact player whether he's hitting shots or not. That's what star players do. Star players shoot enough to where they're always going to score 15 to 20, even if it's not efficient. And if it's not efficient, they can impact the game in 9 other ways so that they come out of the game looking great. He didn't look so great offensively, but this is the kind of game he needs to have consistently down the stretch because he's going to score 40. He's going to score 50. He's going to get his groove back, but he's got to be able to affect games when he's not shooting the basketball well, and he finally did that.
When we're in this stage of the season, we think about the future so often because this season is completely over. We can talk about individual progress. We can talk about improvement, but all of this is to see who is going to stick around with the Hornets for the long term, because this is a team now that is fighting for the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. This is what they're doing. The players might not be fighting for it, but that's what all the fan base is waiting for. So when we talk about a Mark Williams, clearly there's a lot more we need to see from him. I'm happy that he showed you that he still has that kind of spry in him, which we had not seen in quite some time, but it does not mean that you're holding on to him. When we talk about LaMelo, we're always having future conversations about him too. The reason I think LaMelo can be a guy that maybe takes the back seat and isn't the superstar or isn't the number one scoring option on a team that actually does go somewhat far into the postseason or just gets there and then competes, if we want to take baby steps towards this goal. It's, I think, what LaMelo showed you in the fourth quarter while Miles was being the guy that was converting. I do not look at LaMelo and see a dude that so badly wants to be the guy for the team that he has any kind of frustration with Miles being the lead dog in terms of scoring the basketball. What he was doing was he was feeding Miles Bridges. What he was doing was he was feeding Mark Williams on some of those pick and roll opportunities and making the right pass on his way to 10 dimes. Now, before that, he was missing a lot of shots. There was some bad three-pointers. There was the three-point attempt in the fourth quarter that was like 40 feet out. It was a quick rebound that Mark kept that entire possession alive, by the way. There were 2 times that Mark kept that ball in the air for the Hornets to send Daquan Jeffries to the foul line, and that doesn't happen if Mark doesn't 2 separate times bat that ball in the air for the Hornets to go get it. But on one of the quick offensive rebounds, shot clock, I don't know if it resets. I think it does. But LaMelo shoots a 40-footer, and it felt like a bad shot. They get it, and of course, again, Daquan, brings it within 1 point with his 2 free throws. But LaMelo, for the most part in that fourth quarter, was deferring to Miles with the hot hand and playing the role of facilitator. I haven't seen him take on that role with any kind of reluctance. Like when he does switch to that role, I don't see him take that role with any anger, frustration, stomping and pouting because of that. And we've not heard anything like that before. This is the thing to me as to why I think LaMelo can make that transition while the Hornets go look for stars. Maybe they have one in Brandon Miller. Maybe they get one in Cooper Flag. They get one in whoever a top 3, top 5 pick will be in this next NBA draft, while he helps set the table for everybody else to score, and he takes the smarter shots. It's there. You saw it last night, particularly in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, the issue is going to be that he's making so much money that there is going to be expectations on him to do certain things relative to the amount of money that he's making. And that's always a difficult thing. I just think he's got to go back to the drawing board offensively, because what seems to happen consistently in these games is that he tries to drive and he either doesn't get the foul calls that he wants or he just gets his bleep rocked, and then he leans back on these 3-point shots that are less than desirable. There's just like nothing is it's sort of what I spoke about with Miles Bridges. Like, he wasn't hitting his 3, so he got downhill and found some success there, and then that fed into the 3. We're in a backwards feedback loop. We're in a spiraling feedback loop of not hitting shots for LaMelo Ball. And I don't know if it's even something that gets solved this season. I think he's got to go back to the drawing board, got to figure out how to draw fouls better when he's driving. And because some of this is the refs not respecting him, but some of it is just his inability to draw contact such that the refs are forced to blow the whistle. So I think he's got to figure that out. And then I think the 3-point shot will come back with that in concert. But yeah, I mean, I agree with most of what you said there, but at the same time, like, I think he's obviously has to play better offensively than this.
Yeah, he can't miss a million shots because the efficiency just isn't there. I did want to bring up a point about the contract you bring up, and I've been talking about this a lot on Wes and Walker, because the FanDuel text line, it's very different. The YouTube comment section and the FanDuel text line that I deal with every single day, they are very different. The FanDuel text line at WFNZ does not like LaMelo Ball right now. They are not happy with him. And they always bring up the money in terms of him needing to be the leader, right? Because I don't know if LaMelo will ever be that vocal leader, but because he's making $200 million, they want him to be the leader and they want him to have that kind of offensive responsibility. I think too much is being made about the money. I think when you look at where his contract ranks among all other NBA players, it's anywhere from 38th to 41st each season, even on an ascending contract. So you look at a team like Cleveland, for instance. Cleveland has a point guard in Darius Garland, who is an all-star and is a facilitator, but clearly not the leader on that team. And yet he's actually making a little bit more this year than Donovan Mitchell, but then Donovan Mitchell passes him. Evan Mobley is making less money on a per-year basis than Darius Garland. Those two guys, you would say, are the number one and number two scoring option on that Cleveland team, with Darius Garland filling in maybe a 2B role outside of Mobley if you consider him the second option. I think you see these $40 million contracts handed out to third stars on NBA teams that are looking to contend. There's not another guy making that kind of money on this team right now, sure. But in terms of what we'll just see LaMelo be over the next couple of years, it's going to be tough to say, well, he's making $40 million. We got to fit the square peg in the round hole. Got to do it. If it's not it, then it's not it. And I hope we realize and adjust accordingly.
Okay, so I sort of agree with you that he makes, well, obviously, like where he ranks total money wise. I don't think that's the point. The point is he's 25% of the Hornets cap. And when you're a Hornets team, I think the third guy can make $37 million on a team that's willing to go well into the tax and willing to go out and like pay for superstar talent to come to the team that is able to do that. I think you're right. I think the problem is the Hornets are not that. They've got to have one or two guys making big money like that and then go and overpay and like put the right role players around that. And that's where things start to get crunched, particularly because, again, this team I don't think is going to be willing to go into the tax. So when you pay a guy $37 million, when the Hornets in particular pay a guy $37 million, they need that guy to produce because of the cap situation that they force upon themselves.
Well, and we don't know. We don't know. I mean, this is a new regime. Michael Jordan, you would have had a lot of evidence to point to. Well, and you might be right. The thing is, we just don't know. And the thing is, I'm not sure we will know until they start winning. If you wanted to go to Houston, then I guess you could say like Alperen Şengün on his rookie deal isn't making as much as your Dylan Brookses of the world or your Fred VanVleets of the world. But Alperen Şengün is still clearly a top option. I think the money is in the minds of some of these guys, but I also think we can't make too much of it if LaMelo going into his sixth season is showing you that that's just not who he is at this point. But more future conversations persist, man. I mean, we're going to be having this convo the rest of this season, the off season, until they make a final decision. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us.
Real quick, we got just a few minutes left. Tidjane Salaün, you wanted to do a Tidjane Salaün thought?
Well, this is for you too. But like Tidjane had been showing us something. You have been talking about whispers of Giannis. Felt like. It's funny because he's doing it in a different way. He's hitting 3-pointers, but there's stuff that he's doing, and maybe even defensively, you hear those whispers of Giannis. He does get optioned back to the G League, but it doesn't take away him actually helping out in some of these games where the Hornets were winning, Doug. So Tidjane Salaün, what did you think about what he was doing over the weekend against Cleveland and against Brooklyn?
Yeah, I think he's starting to figure out some of the nuances of the NBA game, the spacing on offense, particularly the positioning on defense. I think there's still problems spacing on offense. I think on offense, what he's figuring out is how to use his body to get to the rim effectively. And there's, when I talk about echoes of freakiness, Giannis, like it's the way he uses his physical gifts to overwhelm defenders. And he's starting to do that, get into transition, not try to take over the entire transition play, but play within the flow of that transition opportunity. There's just little things. I've seen enough. So he gets taken back to the G League. That's fine. Like, I've seen enough this season. Yeah. Let's get him into the offseason, get him into the program. He's already learning very quickly. I'm confident this guy's going to be a good player. A lot left to see whether he's going to be a great player or not.
Lots left to see with Tidjane Salaün.
Yeah.
I think what was nice was it had been a while since we've seen a lot of contributions on an NBA court, certainly offensively, And when we got that in winning situations, Doug, I think that's what got the Hornets fan base and the Hornets timeline a little bit more excited, because it had been a little bit of a depressing place in Tidjane land, in the Hornets land, if Hornets land is a thing, and then Tidjane City is another. Tidjane City, sunshine wasn't there a whole lot. We got some rays of sunshine on Tidjane City.
He's not going to be a flame out. To me, that's the bottom line. He's not going to be a flame out.
Yeah, and that's a big deal, honestly, around here. It's a big deal. Let's just keep don't flame out. Tidjane Salaün. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast. That includes YouTube. There's Doug Branson. Check him out on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. You can also listen to him on Locked On NBA with Matt Moore and Hayes. I'm Walker Mail. You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. It's been a doozy of a week with Panthers free agency. We're continuing to talk about that again, 92.7 FM. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.